Alright, Victorum Gaming fans and Hail Caesar fans, we're back with another faction review video. Today we're going to take a look at New Kingdom Egyptian. So we've already taken a look at Old and Middle Kingdom in one of our earlier videos. So this is New Kingdom, basically representing 16th through 11th century BC, so kind of like the pinnacle of the Egyptians, and where a lot of the like model attention is going to be too. So most of the plastic kits and stuff like that, at least from Warlord, I think tend to be from that period. So and again, pretty contemporary with a lot of the other lists that we've been looking at recently. So let's see how this New Kingdom Egyptian list differs from the previous ones here. So you have chariots can be up to 25%. Infantry still have to be at least 75%, so you could do an all-infantry army, although you definitely don't want to skip it on the chariots. We'll see that in a little bit below. And then of the infantry, the medium infantry that you have available has to be at least half of them. You do get the up to one cavalry unit, which we've seen a lot lately in some of the lists. And as usual, the divisions for 4 units per, with skirmishers can be basically half of the infantry per division, but they don't count, essentially. So, actually, on this one, maybe it does. Let's see, divisions may contain up to half as many units as they contain non-skirmisher infantry, so it actually doesn't say anything about that here. Let's see, oh no, it's on the divisions, so yeah, they don't count for the divisions. Okay, moving on. So, what do we get here? We start off with some medium infantry, spears and shields, pretty normal. It does have a little bit of short range value, okay morale save, 23 points a unit. If you go for the double-handed mace axes, though, just for 1 extra point, you give up a little bit on the short-range ability, but that extra clash could be worth it. So a little bit more initial oomph there in close combat. Medium infantry archers, which is pretty cool. Still like an okay fighting value for close combat, but rock solid on the ranged, and for 24 points a unit, too. So that's actually pretty nice there. Egyptian Marines, which seem to be really the best on the stats there, 7 and 7 for clash and sustained. A little bit of range for just the regular medium infantry there on the short range, and they are tough fighters, all that for 26 points. And then if you want to have that unit kind of mixed with basically bows and javelins as well, that gives you some long range, and that costs you an extra 3 per unit. So, and there doesn't seem like there's a restriction or anything, so that's actually pretty cool. We've seen a lot of those, like up to 1 unit only restrictions, but here you can apparently go nuts and get a lot of these marine units. So, and certainly a sustained of 7 is some of the best that we've seen so far, if not the best. And all that for a regular unit, essentially, is pretty dang good, along with tough fighters. Then we get kind of like a guard unit here, like an elite unit, the Sheridan Guard, just 1 unit. And they do have the 7 and 7 there, a little bit of short range. And these guys are elite and stubborn, and it does cost you 30 points for that 1 unit, but you might as well take it. Elite and stubborn is pretty good. We haven't really seen any elite units so far. You can mix in some Sea Peoples, which is always cool, as a war band. 24 points a unit. Comes with a clash of 8, which is really nice. That does drop down to a 6 on the sustained and just a little bit of short-range firepower. But again, you're buying these guys for their close combat prowess and not really so much the shooting. Then we get down to the light infantry. So you got Libyan, Syrian, or Kushite light infantry and or light infantry archers. The archers are a little bit weaker, as we can see there, but obviously you get that long-range firepower to compensate, both at 20 points a unit. The regular light infantry do have a little bit of a stamina save. Not that that's 6+ is going to really help you, but the t-shirt save is better than nothing sometimes. Then what do we got? More skirmishers here with javelins as small units, the usual deal that we've seen so far, so negligible close combat ability for a little bit of short-range firepower. You can give them slings instead, which, yeah, just for the extra long-range ability there is really worth it. That does cost you 1 extra point per unit. And then you can go the bow route, and that's basically up to half of those units. And I should have mentioned the sling unit up to a quarter of the skirmisher units. So just keep that in mind. There's that extra little restriction there. And then the bow units are basically exactly the same as the slings here as far as stats seem to indicate. Then we get onto some of the cool stuff here, really, with the Egyptians. so far, really, we've seen the introduction of some chariot uses in the armies, but these guys really probably right now are the best that we've seen so far. So you got light chariots with bow-armed crews, pretty solid close combat ability, 6 and 6, but excellent on the range, better stamina save than we've seen anywhere else with that 4 up, and that is only going to run you 30 a unit. And then, as we saw above in the description, you have the Naarin light chariot with spear-armed crews. You only get the 1 unit, so again, you might as well take it. But you get that clash of 8, which is just awesome, and tough fighters. You give up a little bit on the ranged ability with them, but they are also 1 point cheaper. But again, you get tough fighters for them, so actually really cool. And then, as we've seen, you can get chariot runners when we've discussed them several times now, but just add a little bit of, it's a sub-unit basically for the chariot, but it gives you a little bit more on the combat and ranged side there. And then as we've seen so far with a lot of these still like Bronze Age-ish, Near East armies, so not so much in the way of horses here, but you do get your kind of like 1 cavalry scout unit, which again, it's just a small unit, so don't expect much out of these guys in combat. You do have a little bit of range, so that they really, I think, should be equipped like with bows, I think is what most of them have been so far. 4 on the clash, don't expect much out of them. They can maybe deal with other small units. Definitely use their speed to get around to get some flanks and rear charges potentially and stuff like that. But also, again, they can harass a little bit with their range, but again, don't expect too much out of that unit. And again, only a weak 6+ stamina save there, but only 15 points for the unit. And then, as we've seen, you get your standard leadership aid across your division commanders and your army general. So would have been cool to potentially see some of the more famous pharaohs listed in this, so maybe like Ramses or something like that. But there is the Bronze Age expansion, which definitely expands upon a lot of these the armies from this era pretty greatly, which we will also get into down the road. So it'll be a while yet before we get to that, but we do have that. We do have that book, and it is fantastic. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. Definitely got some content planned for that. But New Kingdom Egyptian, so definitely a step up in quality from what we saw with the Old and Middle Kingdom. Rock solid infantry, lots and lots of options here. Still a great range of like light infantry and skirmishers, and then some pretty awesome chariots as well. And again, the fact, even though the chariots get like a lot of the attention, as far as like just pure effectiveness, I think the bright spot here is really the Marines, just because there's no restriction on the number of those that you can get seemingly. So between the regular one and then the bow one, bow and javelin one, if you want lots and lots of basically pretty damn solid infantry, go with them. The only thing that's really holding them back would maybe be like a better morale save, but they have the same morale save as pretty much every other medium infantry, so they fight significantly better here. And again, tough fighters is really good. And then of course you should definitely invest in that one Shurden Guard unit. Doesn't really say what they're armed with here, but elite and stubborn, you can't pass that up. And again, if you want that extra little bit of shock value, basically, you could try and field in a couple of like Sea People units just to, again, get that clash of 8, which is pretty damn good too. So it plays a lot like these armies that we've seen lately here, a lot of these Bronze Age, Middle East, Mediterranean armies, but definitely you can see there's a slight tick up here in sort of quality of the units. So definitely a fun army to collect. There is a solid range of plastics available for them, and depending on what all you field here, so if you bring in Egyptian Marines, that could be cool to maybe convert some units to look more like whatever that might look like. You got Libyan, Syrian, and Kushite infantry, access to that. Sea Peoples, which they do have their own separate list, which we'll cover at some point, but you could bring in some of those, and then of course the chariots, which look really awesome when you get those fully painted up. So depending on what specific point in time you want to field these guys out, and maybe have like a specific pharaoh in mind. If you do some research too, again, like paint schemes could be really cool modeling opportunities here. So there's a lot to say in favor of collecting New Kingdom Egyptian. So hope you guys found this useful, and if you could, smash that like button and hit us up with a subscribe if you haven't already. Then stay tuned for more Hail Caesar content.